Close your eyes and picture retirement, golden beaches, leisurely mornings, freedom at last, the luxury of waking up when you want, spending days reading, traveling, or simply doing nothing. Now open your eyes to reality. Nearly half of Americans over 55 have no retirement savings. In Britain, 1 in 6 retirees lives in poverty. Across Europe, pension systems buckle beneath the weight of aging populations and economic strains. The dream of retirement, as we know it, has become a mirage, shimmering and unreachable for millions. This illusion, this promise of peaceful old age, was never truly meant for everyone. It was built on foundations that crumble when tested by time, economics, and politics. To understand why retirement feels like a broken promise today, we must journey back, all the way back to the deserts of North Africa, where the first retirement check was written not on paper, but in blood. Long before the word retirement entered our vocabulary, Rome was already grappling with how to care for its aging soldiers. The Roman legions were the backbone of an empire that stretched across continents. Service was grueling, decades marching through scorching deserts, dense forests, and frozen mountains. Soldiers endured brutality and hardship few could imagine. In return, the Roman state promised its veterans a kind of retirement. After 25 years of loyal service, a soldier was granted a premium, a reward, often a parcel of land or a cash bonus in silver coins. This was less a gift of generosity and more a strategic tool. Settling veterans in conquered territories helped secure the empire's borders with loyal, battle-hardened citizens. It was a way of controlling vast lands without relying solely on new armies. But this promise came at a cost. As the empire expanded, the number of veterans grew, and the treasury strained to pay them all. During times of peace, the financial burden grew heavier, and emperors scrambled to find funds. Some delayed payments, others outright defaulted. Veterans, once proud and loyal, grew restless. Rebellions erupted, some led by disgruntled soldiers denied their rightful rewards. For the common legionnaire, retirement was no idyllic haven. It was a hard-won prize, often uncertain and fraught with hardship. Many found themselves alone on foreign lands, tasked with building new lives from scratch. Some succeeded, many others struggled. In this sense, Roman retirement was a battlefield reward, hard-earned but precarious, a promise as fragile as the empire itself. Imagine the veteran, Gaius, returning after 25 years of service. His body is marked by scars and the years of hardship, his spirit heavy with both pride and uncertainty. The empire's promise is a sliver of hope, a small farm on the outskirts of a volatile province, far from the comforts of Rome itself. Gaius knows that life on this land will not be easy. Raiders, harsh winters, poor soil, all threaten the fragile existence he must now build. His wife and children, left behind in Rome, await news of his fortune, but letters are slow and rare. Rome itself is changing. The empire is overextended, and the once sturdy institutions that supported soldiers begin to falter. Economic strain, political turmoil, and corruption eat away at the system. Veterans like Gaius often find themselves forgotten or abandoned, casualties of a system designed for conquest rather than care. Rome's retirement system was, in many ways, revolutionary for its time. Before this, most ancient societies had no formal provisions for the elderly or retired. People worked until death, relying on family or community support. Rome's approach introduced a contract, years of service exchanged for a future reward. But the empire's reliance on land grants instead of cash pensions also reflected its economic reality. Land was power. Distributing it was a way to extend influence and loyalty. It was a system deeply tied to the militarized expansion of Rome, not the well-being of its citizens. As the empire declined, these promises eroded. Military pensions became political tools, debts were deferred or defaulted on, and many veterans were left vulnerable. The cracks in Rome's retirement system foreshadowed the challenges that would plague pension schemes for millennia to come. The fall of Rome did not just end an empire, it dismantled the fragile safety net for the aging and retired. With the collapse of central authority, retirement became a foreign concept. For centuries, the elderly were left to fend for themselves. When the Roman Empire crumbled, Its sprawling systems and its promises crumbled with it. The grand machinery that had once granted land to weary soldiers ground to a halt. In the chaos that followed, Europe descended into what historians call the Dark Ages. But for the elderly, it wasn't just darkness. It was often neglect, poverty, and isolation. Without the centralized power of Rome to organize pensions or social safety nets, caring for the old became a family or community affair. If it happened at all, most people labored until death or depended entirely on relatives who might be equally impoverished. This era saw no golden years, only survival. Old age was marked not by rest, but by vulnerability. Lifespans were short, diseases rampant, and the elderly often cast aside as burdens. The idea of retirement was a foreign luxury, but amid the bleakness, seeds of change were quietly planted. Monasteries and religious orders became unexpected havens for the aged and infirm. Christian charity introduced the notion that society bore responsibility for those who could no longer care for themselves. Hospitals, almshouses, and poorhouses emerged, early, rudimentary forms of social welfare. Yet these institutions were often grim and overcrowded, more places of containment than comfort. The medieval world understood old age as a stage of decline, not renewal. The soul's salvation was paramount, while earthly pleasures or leisure were luxuries few could imagine. Picture an elderly woman named Marjorie living in a small English village in the 12th century. She once labored as a weaver, her hands nimble and skilled. Now arthritis cripples her fingers. Her children have moved away to seek work, and the village barely supports itself. Marjorie's only refuge is the local abbey's infirmary, a place offering meager food and shelter in exchange for her fading skills, perhaps spinning wool or reciting prayers. The monks see her as a burden, but also as a soul worthy of charity. Her story was common. Most elderly had no guaranteed income, no savings, no pension. They relied on the goodwill of neighbors, charity, or their own hard-earned wisdom to survive. Yet these small acts of care, rooted in faith, laid groundwork for later social welfare ideas. The medieval period's harshness gave way slowly to new understandings of community and responsibility. The medieval system, with its limited charity and family dependence, endured for centuries, but it was ill-equipped for the seismic changes that came with the Renaissance and Industrial Revolution. As Europe shifted from agrarian to industrial economies, old social structures began to fracture. Urbanization uprooted families, and traditional community ties weakened. Factories demanded long hours, and the aged often found themselves pushed aside, unable to compete or survive in this new world. Retirement as a concept remained elusive, but the seeds of modern pension systems were sown in 17th and 18th century Europe. The first government-backed pensions appeared in Sweden in the late 1600s, a radical idea, the state taking responsibility for its aging citizens. Britain followed with the introduction of the first Old Age Pension Act in 1908, providing modest support for those over 70. These early pensions were limited, means-tested, and barely enough to live on, but they marked a turning point. For the first time, aging was not solely a family burden, but a public concern. The Industrial Revolution, while creating immense wealth and technological progress, also laid bare brutal inequalities, especially for the elderly. In booming cities, elderly workers often faced brutal conditions. They had no choice but to keep working in factories or workshops, often in dangerous and exhausting roles, because there was no safety net. Child labor laws and reforms came slowly. Pensions and social security systems took even longer. Meanwhile, many older workers were simply discarded, forced into poverty or poorhouses. The rise of capitalism changed the very meaning of work and value. Where once a person's worth was tied to land and lineage, it now hinged on productivity. If you could no longer work, you became economically invisible. Still, progress marched on. Visionaries like Otto von Bismarck introduced the first comprehensive social insurance programs in the late 19th century, including old-age pensions funded by contributions from employers and employees. Bismarck's model laid the foundation for modern welfare states, inspiring systems worldwide. Yet the system also came with strings, often requiring continued labor before qualifying, and sometimes excluding large swaths of the population. The 20th century witnessed an unprecedented transformation in how societies viewed retirement. No longer was old age solely an individual or family concern. It became a collective responsibility. Industrialized nations established social safety nets that promised dignity in later life, heralding the era of the modern pension state. In 1935, the United States passed the Social Security Act, a landmark law that introduced a federal retirement insurance program. For millions, it was a beacon of hope during the Great Depression, a promise that old age wouldn't mean destitution. Europe, too, expanded pension schemes, often linking benefits to years of work and contributions, embedding retirement into the social contract. Yet beneath these achievements lurked hidden tensions. The system depended on continuous economic growth and a stable workforce to fund retirees. As birth rates dropped and lifespans lengthened, pensions became a ticking fiscal time bomb. Politicians promised security but faced a looming question: how to sustain retirement benefits for a swelling elderly population? Meanwhile, the ideal of retirement as a period of leisure and fulfillment took hold culturally, propelled by media images of golf courses, cruises, and second acts. But this ideal masked the reality for many workers, especially women, minorities, and those in precarious jobs, who found themselves excluded from full benefits or forced to work well into their 70s or beyond. Retirement became both a right and a privilege, accessible for some, elusive for others. As the 21st century unfolds, the world of work and retirement faces seismic shifts once again. Silicon Valley's rise has transformed economies, replacing lifelong stable careers with gig work, freelancing, and entrepreneurial hustle. The promises of retirement built on steady jobs with pensions and benefits seem like relics of a bygone era. Today's workers often navigate a patchwork of short-term contracts, zero-hour agreements, and freelance gigs, with little to no retirement security. The responsibility to save for old age has shifted increasingly onto individuals, many of whom struggle to keep up. The dream of a comfortable retirement collides with reality: soaring healthcare costs, volatile markets, and shifting social policies. Meanwhile, advances in medicine and technology extend lifespans, creating new opportunities and new challenges. Could the concept of retirement itself be outdated? Should we rethink how society values aging, work, and leisure? Technology promises new solutions, from AI-driven health monitoring to digital pensions, but also risks deepening inequalities between the tech-savvy and those left behind. The question remains: can society redefine old age for a future where work and life no longer follow predictable patterns? Retirement's story is a mirror reflecting society's evolving values and struggles, from ancient blood-soaked deserts to high-tech urban jungles. It reveals how promises, both kept and broken, shape lives and define what it means to grow old. As we continue this journey, we confront uncomfortable truths: the fragility of social contracts, the inequalities baked into systems, and the enduring human desire for dignity in our final chapters. Today, the grand promise of retirement, the golden years free from worry and toil, stands at a crossroads. Across the globe, millions face insecurity. In the United States, nearly half of those over 55 have little to no savings. Pension funds, once pillars of stability, now teeter on the edge of insolvency. The familiar safety nets fray under demographic pressures and economic uncertainty. The old models strain to support populations living longer, but not always healthier lives. As lifespans extend, the question grows louder: who will pay for these extra years? In countries like Britain, rising poverty rates among retirees underscore a harsh truth. Retirement is no longer guaranteed to be comfortable or secure. In parts of Europe, pension systems buckle under the weight of aging societies, forcing governments to raise retirement ages, cut benefits, or shift more costs to individuals. Meanwhile, the private sector's growing role in retirement savings introduces new risks. Stock market volatility, fees, and uneven access to financial education mean many are left behind. Technology offers both hope and challenge. Digital tools and AI may revolutionize how we save, invest, and manage health. But they may also deepen divides, favoring those with resources and knowledge. Yet beyond economics and policy, retirement exposes deeper cultural questions. How do we value aging? What is the meaning of work and rest in a rapidly changing world? Can societies rebuild a shared social contract that honors dignity for all, not just the privileged? The ancient Romans wrote retirement in blood, promising land and security to soldiers. Centuries later, those promises echo faintly, often broken or distorted. Our challenge now is to forge a new vision, one that recognizes the complexity of modern life, embraces diversity in aging, and redefines old age not as a burden, but as a vital, respected phase of life. Will we rise to meet this moment, or will the dream of retirement remain just that, a dream? Retirement's story is unfinished. It's a living history, shaped by politics, economics, culture, and technology. As we confront unprecedented demographic shifts and economic upheaval, we must ask, what kind of society do we want to build for the old and the young alike? Can we craft systems that are flexible, fair, and humane? Perhaps the future lies not in clinging to outdated models, but in innovation, rethinking work, leisure, and community. Maybe retirement is less about a final exit from work and more about continuous reinvention, contribution, and connection. We stand at a threshold. The choices we make now will echo for generations. The story of retirement, from Roman deserts to broken promises, reminds us, history is not destiny. It's a call to action. So next time you picture retirement, look beyond the golden beaches and leisure. See the long, complicated journey, the promises made and broken, the struggles endured, and the hope yet to come. Because the story of retirement is, at its heart, a story about how we care for each other across time. It's about justice, dignity, and shared humanity. And maybe, just maybe, it's a story we can still rewrite.